Jennifer's life unfolded amidst the constant sound of low conversations, clinking dishes, and the aroma of fresh coffee in the air. Working as a server in that restaurant wasn't exactly what she had envisioned when she was younger, full of dreams and expectations. The small establishment in the city center had become both her refuge and her prison. It offered the security of a stable job, but at the cost of a monotonous routine that silently crushed her dreams. Every morning, Jennifer would put on her uniform, fix her hair, and walk down the same streets, seeing the same people, the same cars, and the same shop windows. She served the customers with an automatic smile, but inside, there was a growing emptiness. Sometimes, between orders, her mind would drift back to the days when she believed something grand awaited her, but now she felt trapped in a predictable life, with no surprises, no excitement. At the end of each shift, she felt the physical exhaustion, but what truly wore her down was the weight of a life that didn't feel entirely her own. She dreamed of doing more, of living more, maybe traveling, starting a new project, or even going back to school. But these thoughts, though they brought momentary comfort, were always pushed to a vague someday. The days passed, and Jennifer continued the same silent journey, as if waiting for something or someone to pull her out of that spiral of sameness. And then, on what seemed like an ordinary day, everything began to change. That night, the air was colder than usual as Jennifer closed the restaurant door behind her. Her thoughts were lost in the repetition of the day, head down, following her usual path. Until in the distance, something caught her attention. A figure on the sidewalk collapsed near a poorly lit alley. She hesitated for a moment, her heart racing. The city could be unpredictable at night, and her first instinct was to walk faster and ignore it. But there was something about the man on the ground that made her stop. He looked hurt. Taking a deep breath, Jennifer cautiously approached. The man was leaning against the wall, head down, his shoulders hunched in pain. He wore dark clothes, and his messy brown hair fell over his face. A deep cut on his eyebrow was bleeding, and his breathing was irregular. "Are you okay?" Jennifer asked, her voice hesitant. The man slowly raised his head, and despite the visible pain, his eyes seemed sharp and aware. He tried to stand but faltered, nearly falling again. Without thinking twice, Jennifer knelt beside him, offering support. I'm fine. I just need..." He paused, as if the words weighed as heavily as his injured body. "You don't look fine. Let me help you," Jennifer insisted, glancing around nervously as if expecting someone else to come help. But the street was strangely empty. The man accepted Jennifer's arm, though he seemed reluctant to show any weakness. Together, they slowly walked toward her small apartment just a few blocks away. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unasked questions. Jennifer wanted to know who he was, how he had gotten hurt, but something about the way he remained reserved kept her from asking directly. When they reached her apartment, she helped him sit on the small couch, offering him a glass of water. He thanked her, his eyes briefly meeting hers with an intensity that left her uncomfortably intrigued. There was something in the air that night, something Jennifer couldn't quite identify. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like her life might be about to change. The following days were a mix of uncertainty and curiosity. Jennifer found herself caring for the mysterious man in her small apartment. The improvised arrangements became a routine, cleaning his wounds, preparing simple meals, and making sure he was comfortable. But the closer she got to him, the more she felt trapped in a maze of unanswered questions. The man, whom Jennifer had mentally dubbed the Mysterious One, seemed reluctant to share any information about himself. He called himself Lucas but never offered details about his life. Instead, he would deflect her questions with an enigmatic smile or shift the conversation to something lighter. "You're really hurt. What happened?" Jennifer asked one day while tending to the wound on his arm. She locked eyes with him, trying to decipher what was hiding behind that calm expression. "Oh, just a silly accident. You know how life is, full of surprises," he replied, his gaze distant as if the question had triggered a memory he preferred not to relive. The answer wasn't enough to satisfy her. Jennifer noticed how he often looked out the window, as if waiting for something or someone. There was a palpable mystery around him, something that both fascinated and frightened her. As days turned into weeks, she found herself increasingly drawn to his presence. The silent moments they shared, the glances that lingered a second longer, fueled a growing curiosity within her. There was something in his eyes, a depth that seemed to reflect experiences Jennifer could barely imagine. And despite the mystery surrounding him, there was an inexplicable connection that made everything more intriguing. Caring for Lucas had become an essential part of Jennifer's life, but like a tide that inevitably changes, the consequences of her choices began to pile up. After missing work for several weeks, a message from the restaurant management made her heart stop for a moment. "Please come to the office." With a knot in her throat, she prepared herself for the conversation. What had once been a place of security and stability now felt like hostile ground. When she entered the office, the manager, a woman with a stern expression, barely needed to say much. "Hey, Jennifer, I'm sorry to say we can't keep you on any longer. You've been absent too often, and unfortunately, that's not acceptable." Her words echoed in Jennifer's mind like a sentence. The room seemed to spin around her, and she felt suffocated. The restaurant was more than just a job. It was her anchor, her source of income, and in a way, her identity. "But she tried to explain, her voice trembling, but the manager cut her off. "We understand you had your reasons, but we need someone who's present and committed." As she left the office, a wave of despair washed over Jennifer. What had she done? The decision to help Lucas, a man who was still an enigma, now weighed on her mind like an anchor, dragging her into the depths. Walking through the streets, her heart heavy and her mind full of doubts, she wondered if she had made the right choice. What did it mean to sacrifice her security for a stranger? Confusion wrapped around her. The future that once seemed promising was now shrouded in uncertainty. Jennifer felt lost, like a boat adrift, unsure if the connection she felt with Lucas was worth the cost of her own stability. As the days dragged on, Lucas began to open up, though he was still far from revealing his true identity. Sitting at the kitchen table, Jennifer watched him closely, her features marked by concern and a mix of relief. "I'm running from something dangerous," he said quietly, his voice hesitant. Lucas's eyes searched hers, as if trying to convey the gravity of his situation without revealing all the details. Jennifer felt a chill run down her spine. His words struck her deeply, like a shadow casting itself over her once peaceful life. What was he really hiding? "Can you tell me more?" she asked, her curiosity overcoming her fear. "What exactly is happening?" Lucas looked away, staring at the floor as if the answer was buried beneath the wooden boards. "I can't go into detail, but it's serious. If I go back, I don't know what will happen," he whispered, his tone almost a breath. Jennifer's heart raced. On one hand, she was grateful he had trusted her with part of his story, but on the other, the uncertainty was overwhelming. How could she be sure he wasn't a threat? At the same time, something about Lucas started to feel familiar. You're not a complete stranger to me," she murmured, her voice laced with confusion. Lucas looked at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. What do you mean?" "I don't know. It's just that there's something about you that reminds me of someone I once knew." In that moment, Jennifer realized that, even amidst the mystery, there was a connection that challenged her perceptions. And as the revelations unfolded, she began to question not only Lucas's past but her own decisions as well. With the weight of her firing still pressing on her mind, Jennifer decided she wouldn't let despair take over her life. The clock on her wall struck the same time as always. Time to search for a new job. She took a deep breath, determined to rise again. Walking through the city streets, the sun shone brightly, reflecting a light that almost felt symbolic. Jennifer handed out resumes, her footsteps echoing on the sidewalk, and though she felt discouraged, a small spark of hope began to flicker inside her. Life could be restarted. She just had to believe. Meanwhile, back at home, Lucas continued to recover. Over time, he became more communicative, allowing Jennifer to get a glimpse of his world. Their conversations grew more frequent, and a bond began to form between them. The way he looked at her, full of gratitude and admiration, made Jennifer's heart race. "You really are an incredible person, Jennifer," Lucas said one day as she prepared dinner. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." His words echoed in her mind, reminding her that empathy and kindness still existed even in dark times. As she washed the dishes, she allowed herself to smile, a small reminder that she hadn't completely lost herself. That night, before going to bed, Jennifer made a list of jobs she wanted to pursue. The future was uncertain, but there was a renewed strength within her. If Lucas was running from something dangerous, she was also ready to face her own fears and challenges. After all, starting over wasn't just about finding a new job, it was about allowing herself to dream again. The atmosphere was heavy that morning as Jennifer prepared for another uncertain day. With the kettle whistling, she reflected on her life and her choices. Determined to rebuild her path, she decided to review the list of jobs she had made the night before. However, her thoughts soon drifted to Lucas, still sleeping on her couch, recovering from the latest phase of his mysterious ordeal. It was then, as she served the coffee, that a casual conversation took an unexpected turn. Lucas began talking about his past, mentioning places Jennifer recognized. Her eyes widened when he spoke about a nearby town where she had spent part of her childhood. A flood of memories rushed through her mind, but she couldn't quite connect the dots. "I used to visit my grandmother's house there," Lucas said with a faint nostalgic smile. "There was a group of kids that used to play in the street. Do you remember the summer club?" The words made Jennifer's heart stop. Memories of a boy with curly hair, always laughing and making everyone around him smile, began to surface. The realization hit her like a punch in the stomach. The man in front of her was Alex, the childhood friend who had disappeared without a trace. "Alex?" Jennifer asked hesitantly, her voice trembling. His expression changed instantly, surprise taking over his face. He tried to look away but couldn't hide the truth. "Yes, Jennifer, it's me." His words echoed in her mind, a mix of disbelief and confusion. How could he come back like this at such a vulnerable moment? The choices she had made along the way now felt even heavier. The revelation left her stunned, making her question not only who he was, but also who she had become by getting involved with him. The weight of the past began to blend with the present, and Jennifer found herself at a crossroads, facing an uncertain future with an old friend who was now a stranger. The silence in the room was almost deafening after the revelation. Jennifer sat on the edge of the couch, her heart racing as she tried to process the reality before her. Alex, a figure from her past who once brought joy to her childhood, was now a man marked by misfortune and secrecy. "Jennifer, please," he began, his voice filled with urgency. "I need you to believe me. The only reason I left was out of fear. I was running from something much bigger than you can imagine. It wasn't an easy choice." She looked at him, remembering the boy who used to play hide and seek on sunny days, and the contrast with the troubled man in front of her was overwhelming. What could have happened to Alex to make him this way? Part of her wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him again, but another part felt betrayed. "You disappeared, Alex," Jennifer exclaimed, her voice shaking. "I was so worried. No one knew where you were. I thought you were dead." Alex closed his eyes for a moment as if her pain struck him deeply. "I know, and I'm so sorry for that. I never wanted you to go through all that. But now I'm here, and I'm just asking for a chance to explain everything, to try and make things right." Jennifer felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The connection they once had was now tainted by doubt. Should she trust Alex, or follow her instinct and walk away? The decision weighed heavily on her mind, the need to protect her heart clashing with the desire to help someone she still cared about. The internal conflict grew, leaving her torn between hope and fear. Jennifer felt the world spinning around her, emotions clashing in her mind. The revelation of the man's identity left her stunned, challenging everything she thought she knew about him and herself. Now, faced with the possibility of a new connection or a return to fear, she found herself in a whirlwind of emotions. "You have to trust me, Jennifer," he said, his voice urgent. "I'm not here by choice. What I'm dealing with is far more dangerous than you can imagine. I need your help to solve this." He seemed so vulnerable at that moment, but the doubt lingered. Their past and unresolved story still weighed on her. Sitting at the kitchen table, Jennifer stared at the cup of coffee that was slowly cooling. The familiar smell brought some comfort, but it couldn't push away the unease that consumed her. She wanted to believe him, but her heart was full of unanswered questions. What if he was lying? What if by helping him she was putting herself in danger? With the burden of responsibility heavy on her shoulders, Jennifer decided to consult her friends. "You can't put yourself at risk for him," said Anna, her best friend, with clear concern on her face. "You don't know the truth about what's going on." But on the other hand, Luis, a longtime friend, encouraged her. "Sometimes people need a second chance. What would you do if it were you out there?" Those words echoed in her mind as she pondered the situation. The uncertainty haunted her, and what should have been an act of courage turned into a moral dilemma. What was more important, her own safety or the chance to save someone who needed her? Jennifer knew that the decision she would make would change the course of their lives forever. Night wrapped Jennifer in a blanket of darkness, but the atmosphere inside the house was tense, almost oppressive. The mysterious man, now closer to her than ever, had revealed that those chasing him were nearer than they appeared. He had managed to stay hidden so far, but the feeling that danger was lurking weighed heavily in the air. Then, a loud noise echoed from the back door, shattering the night's stillness. Jennifer froze, her heart pounding. "They're here," he whispered, his eyes filled with panic. Fear enveloped her like a fog, but at the same time, a surge of adrenaline rushed through her. Without thinking, Jennifer grabbed a chair, preparing to defend herself. The knocks on the door grew louder, and the wood seemed to groan under the pressure. Jennifer took a deep breath, struggling to stay calm. "Stay behind me," she said, her voice trembling. He nodded, his eyes revealing a mix of gratitude and desperation. Then, the door burst open with a crash, revealing two shadowy figures who stormed in, their faces hidden and their intentions dark. Survival instincts kicked in for Jennifer. She raised the chair, determined to protect not just herself, but also the man she had chosen to help. A brutal fight ensued. Jennifer found herself striking instinctively, each move fueled by a blend of fear and determination. The voices of her friends echoed in her mind, reminding her of the importance of her own safety. But she couldn't afford to think about that now. What was at stake was far greater than her own life. At the peak of the confrontation, as shadows danced around them, Jennifer realized she was fighting not just a physical enemy, but all the uncertainties that had haunted her. She was determined to face the danger and fight for what she believed in, even if it meant risking everything. The courage she didn't know she had now burned fiercely within her, turning fear into an unstoppable force. After the intense confrontation that had nearly cost her life, Jennifer found herself in a moment of reflection. The city lights flickered in the distance, and the night's silence offered a disturbing contrast to the recent chaos. As she breathed deeply, each inhale brought a new understanding of her own strength. She had faced fear head-on, not just for others, but for herself. Sitting on the couch surrounded by the marks of battle, Jennifer looked at the mysterious man, now an ally. He was injured, but the look they shared was one of deep recognition. In that moment, amidst so much uncertainty, she realized she no longer had to live under the weight of what others expected of her. The experience she had gained made her understand that her destiny wasn't tied to others' opinions, but to the choices she made for herself. With a renewed heart, Jennifer made the decision to move forward. She knew challenges would come, but now she had the tools to face them. Her intuition, which had once wavered, now pulsed strongly within her, a compass that would always guide her. The newly discovered courage encouraged her not to hide, but to step forward and embrace each new day as a new opportunity. She stood up, determined. The past could no longer dictate her future. It was time to rewrite her story, to discover what the world had to offer and how she could fit into this vast and dazzling landscape. The smile that formed on her face reflected the resolve of a woman who was finally in control of her destiny, ready to explore the horizons that once seemed out of reach. With the danger finally behind her, Jennifer began to walk the path of rebuilding. The sun rose on the horizon, bathing the city in a golden hue, as if it too was witnessing her transformation. Every step she took felt firmer, more confident. The experience had shaped her, and now she had a new perspective on life. As she sent out job applications, Jennifer wasn't just looking for work, but for a new opportunity to rediscover herself. What had once seemed like a simple routine was now a chance for growth. She decided to apply for a job at a cafe, a place that radiated warmth and where she could connect with people in a more meaningful way. During the interview, she smiled genuinely, conveying the confidence she had gained. When she got the news that she had been hired, a wave of joy washed over her, bringing a fresh sense of renewal to her soul. That night, as she reflected on everything she had faced, Jennifer sat down with a notebook, writing down her thoughts. What had once been paralyzing fear had now transformed into gratitude for the lessons learned. She realized that each challenge had taught her not only to value life, but also her own inner strength. The past wouldn't be forgotten, but it would serve as a solid foundation for the future she was about to build. With a light and hopeful heart, she was ready to embrace the new possibilities that awaited her. Jennifer looked out the window, watching the sky fill with vibrant colors as dawn broke. The sun rose slowly, as if shyly welcoming a new day, a new chapter. After everything she had been through, a sense of peace was beginning to settle in her heart. The freedom she had longed for was finally hers, not just freedom from a place, but freedom of her own mind and emotions. The journey that had led her to face her fears and uncertainties had transformed her. Jennifer knew the challenges hadn't disappeared, but now she had the strength and confidence to face them. Every tear shed, every doubt felt had prepared her for this moment of renewal. With a gentle smile, she made a promise to herself. She would never lose sight of who she was again. Gratitude wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She was thankful for the lessons, for the friendships that had blossomed along the way, and above all, for the courage to follow her heart. Jennifer decided that the future was a space to be shaped by her own choices and actions. Instead of fearing the unknown, she would embrace it as an opportunity for even greater growth. With each step she took, she felt more alive, more free, ready to write her own story, a story filled with hope and new beginnings. What would you do in Jennifer's place? Would you have helped the mysterious man? Leave a comment below to tell us what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you don't miss any stories like this.